Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone 14 and compare it against the Google Pixel 6 and see which specific phone is a better one for you. Now, I will leave both these phones linked in the description. You can get them from there. You can help support the channel at the same time. Now, side by side, you can definitely tell there are a few key differences. The Pixel 6 is a little bit of a bigger phone for sure, with a little bit of a different design. The Pixel 6 on the front has a 6.4-inch OLED display, and it's a pretty good looking panel. It's not definitely the worst panel. It's a 90 hertz screen, so it definitely looks pretty decent. A whole bunch display at that. And I will say for the price of this phone, which is substantially less than an iPhone 14, even now in the used market, it's very interesting that Google was able to make a phone at this caliber for this type of price tag. Now, it's definitely not perfect. I definitely do think the 14 is kind of built better, but the Pixel 6 still, with its display, is not bad. The 6 Pro definitely has a better display, but I would say the 14 panel looks better. The iPhone 14 on the front doesn't look like a better iPhone or look like a better phone, but the panel is visibly better in my opinion. Now, it is a 60 Hz 6.1-inch panel, so a little bit of a smaller display. You're still getting things like the notch, which is kind of a disappointment, but I think the display itself looks better. Now, it's still at 60 Hz, so that's one advantage for the Pixel 6, and you have a whole bunch of display on the Pixel 6, which is a little bit better than the iPhone 14's display, let's be honest. So in terms of both, I would say the 14 display looks better, but the design of the Pixel 6 display overall is, I think, the better one for sure. Now, in terms of thinness and thickness between both, it's very interesting because both of them are kind of similar. I mean, I think the Pixel 6 is probably thicker, but when you're feeling them both in the hand, one doesn't really feel much thicker, even though it kind of curves on the side of the Pixel 6. So it gives the impression that it's a little bit thinner than it really is. And when we talk about camera modules, this is where things start starting to go crazy. First of all, Pixel 6 does have a SIM card, which is cool. The iPhone 14 does not have it. It is all eSIM, but we have a dual camera set up, but their layout is a little bit different. So the camera bump is much higher on the Pixel 6. So you can see for yourself, how much of a visibly bigger difference that is. It's not a big deal, but it is something to kind of keep in mind. We are getting glass backs on both as well, and dual camera setups, so kind of the same thing. We're getting wireless charging on both, which is nice. Now on the bottom, we are getting USB-C on the Pixel 6, where we're getting Lightning on the iPhone 14, which in my opinion, I think is okay, but this has to be like the last year Apple uses Lightning. I love Lightning. I like Lightning, but I don't like how I have to use one Lightning cord for all my products, and then my USB-C products like my MacBooks and some of my headphones, and then even like some of my Androids, I have to use USB-C. It's very annoying. Let's just use one cable and move on with our lives. So in terms of that, that kind of covers it up on the outside. Now, in terms of longevity and software, this is where things are kind of complicated. So with Androids, typically they would be pretty good. Androids in general have been kind of hit or miss, but within the last few years, they've been going crazy. And now with this Android phone with the Pixel 6, Google actually offered, I think, 5 years of security updates and 4 years of full OS updates. The thing is now the Pixel 6 came out last year, so it's almost approaching 1 year old right now. So this is kind of one thing to keep in mind. This phone is not going to be, lasting 30 years or anything like that, and it's probably not going to last as long as the iPhone 14, but it is still going to last a very long time for an Android device. Even for any phone to last that long, it's actually pretty impressive. It's one of the longest lasting Android phones right now. Now with the iPhone 14, this thing is just getting started. I would say in terms of years of full OS updates, it's probably going to last, in terms of numbers, probably the same thing as the Pixel 6. So it's not like it's running laps around that phone, but it's still going to last longer than the Pixel 6 in this day. Like if you buy both these phones today, this phone's probably going to last longer than the Pixel 6. So that's kind of how to sum that up. Now let's go and do a speed comparison between both these phones. The Pixel 6 has that Google Tensor chipset inside of it with 8 gigabytes of RAM, where the iPhone 14 has that Apple A15 Bionic chip inside of it with 6 gigabytes of RAM. So let's go and see which one's the faster one between both. Okay, there we go. All the apps are cleared out in the background, as you guys can see. So let's get into it. Let's do phone calls. Sorry, it looks kind of weird in the camera. Phone calls 3, 2, 1. Okay, kind of the same thing. Camera 3, 2, 1. About the same thing too. Let's go and take a photo. And let's go and open up that photo. Very, very fast on both, so not really that big of a difference. Let's do App Stores 3, 2, 1. And very, very fast on both. A little bit of a different setup on both, obviously, as well. But scrolling through, let's see if there's a difference. And I will say, even though the Pixel 6 has a 90 Hz panel, the iPhone 14 seems like a smoother phone when it comes down to it. I'm kind of maneuvering through like the whole entire OS like this. Both look very smooth, so not really that big of a difference here. As always, we have a bunch of these third-party applications we can go and get into. Let's go and open it up. Let's go to Twitter 3, 2, 1. Okay, already have a pop-up on there. Two different things, so we'll just kind of let that one slide. Temple Run 2, 3, 2, 1. This is a little bit of a bigger game, so it has a long load time, if you will. And honestly, it does kind of look like the Pixel 6 is loading this one up a little bit faster. Like I said, this is the Tensor chipset, so it's a very good chipset. Weirdly enough, though, this phone is kind of not old, but it's been aged up a little bit. Snapchat 321, but you have to remember this one has the same chipset as the iPhone 13, so it pretty much has a year-old chipset as of this point too. Snake first blocks, 3, 2, 1. iPhone 14 slightly faster, but it was very, very close. Let's go and get into thank you, 3, 2, 1. And the Pixel 6 was very, very fast there. I don't know if that's because the Android app was more optimized or something, but that was a very, very fast difference for sure. We can try something like Instagram, which I don't even know if I have on this phone, which is very, very strange. We try Stack, 3, 2, 1. And the Pixel 6, I think, was slightly faster, but we did get to it add in there, so kind of a difference. And let's go and open up Genshin Impact, 3, 2, 1. Now, I will say from my gaming experience on both these phones, they've been great. I think with the Pixel 6, it does a really good job at everything I've thrown in it. The iPhone 14, obviously the same chipset as last year, so it's still very good too. But these loading speeds is what's very interesting because the gameplay is very similar. You can give me a Pixel 4a, or you can give me an iPhone SE1, and it probably can still play the game the same. But here, the iPhone 14 definitely was far faster when loading up this specific game. So when it kind of comes down to at least opening up some of these initial games, there are a lot of similarities for sure. And I think the iPhone 14 is probably the faster one when it comes down to it. But I think the Pixel 6 still did a really good job. Like, this is not a very old phone anymore. It's not an old device. But the thing that also is surprising is that the Pixel 6 is much cheaper than the iPhone 14. So it handled it for, comparatively. I wouldn't really pick up one phone over the other because of the performance. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. Now, in terms of the cameras, quickly we're going to hit on them. The iPhone 14 and the Pixel 6 both have dual camera setups, wide and ultra-wide sensors. They both can do 4K at 60 on the back. The Pixel 6 can only do 1080p on the front, where the iPhone 14 can do 4K at 60 on the front, which is really nice. Now, with the Pixel cameras, I feel like Androids in general have really good cameras, but their camera UIs can be a little iffy. Samsung knocks it out of the park, in my opinion. With the Pixels, it's more in line with something like an iPhone camera. You have things like night sight, you have motion, you have video mode, you have, other modes here too. So there's a lot of capability here for sure. One thing though, zooming in and out can be a little bit of a glitchy experience. I was never a fan of it. I wish they can go ahead and kind of smooth it in and out. You have 0.7x zoom, so not 0.5x zoom, and you have 7x zoom when you're zooming in. So definitely not a bad camera. I feel like the quality of these cameras are very good. I'm going to make a full camera comparison at some point, but this is still a pretty good sensor for sure. The iPhone 14 is pretty good too. I mean, it's definitely I think I would say call it a better sensor. It's a little bit of a smoother camera UI as well. So if you're zooming in and out, you can see it's a little bit smoother. You have 5x zoom, so not as much as the Pixel 6a, but you have 0.5x zoom where you can go and zoom out a little bit more, 0.2x more than the Pixel 6. So that might be a little bit of a bigger difference there. Now, video mode and cinematic mode is really cool. You have super stabilization mode on the iPhone 14 too. Still a very good camera, and I might say it's better than the Pixel 6, but we'll have to wait for my full comparison to kind of see that. So to kind of sum up this whole entire video, I'll definitely tell you, I think the iPhone 14 is a really good phone, but I wouldn't call it a better phone than the Pixel 6. I found the Pixel 6 having better battery life from a battery test I did. I found it having, kind of good performance. It has decent build quality. Like, this is still a very capable phone that you can find all over the place. You can buy brand new or in the used market, and it's a very good phone. The iPhone 14, it's not an expensive phone, but it's more expensive than I initially thought. And I think for what you're getting, you might as well just buy an iPhone 13, to be honest. I think the Pixel 6 is probably the one I would probably recommend if you're comfortable with Android. If not, I mean, the iPhone 14 has a better display, I think. It has better build quality, I wouldn't even call it better build quality. It's going to last longer on the iPhone 14, kind of better camera capability as well. So that's kind of how I'd sum it up. But I think the Pixel 6 is still a very good phone as well. So that kind of sums up this comparison. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.